Hi everyone, it's Nicholas, and I want to compare two image services that are available for your WordPress blog. The services I want to compare the long-standing champion Kraken IO and a new one from the same guys who do WP Rocket called Imagify or Imagify or iMag iffy. Anyways, I'm going to call it Imagify for the rest of this recording. But for those of you who aren't familiar with the concept, in order to optimize your photos for your WordPress blog or your site or what have you, typically the way that you're doing that in the past is either uploading photos directly to your site, which is not optimizing them and is really bad and causes really high load times, or traditionally what we're doing here is using something like Pixelmator or Photoshop. You open up the image that you want to use. You're going to go in. You're going to adjust the image size to something reasonable, like max width of 2000, which is probably the highest you're going to need. Let's start getting into really high res Retina stuff. But anyways, scale that down, and then when we go to share for web, what this is doing is converting it to a proper format for the web, so either JPEG or PNG, and then adjusting the quality settings and stuff like that, depending on where you're using the photo, high, very high, that sort of thing. Now, this is all well and good, but obviously is a pain in the butt, especially when you're posting a bunch of images or you really just want to throw a blog post up. Maybe you're blogging from your iPhone and you don't want to have to bother with sending the images home and opening them up here and all of that. Now, one of the other plugins that I've used so far has been, we can go ahead and delete this, has been an image called or a plugin called Image Optimizer. Here we go. Now, unless you're paying for their cloud service, is actually going to optimize images directly on your server, which is okay. It does an okay job. It's not the greatest. And it does put load on your server. So it's kind of one of those, like, it's better than nothing. But the two services I'm about to talk about here have both, the pricing's gotten good, and I'll go over that later. Good enough that I figured I would give them a try. And actually, in the case of Imagify, they invited me to their beta, alpha, whatever this is. So you do get some free credit with each of these as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. Both of these work on the same premise. They give you a WordPress plugin. When you upload images to your site, they get optimized. For the sake of this test, they both actually have web uploaders, which is nice. And it does take a little bit of time to do these, so I went ahead and I cheated, and I already compressed some images. These are just Unsplash images that I did. As you can see, I've got two sets here, one of the Mona Lisa and another one with this gorgeous sort of HDR ocean view with fishing hut thing. So these are the two sample images that I used. The Mona Lisa started out at 1.1 meg. Kraken took it down to 1, and Imagify took it down to 883 kilobytes. So in this case, Imagify performed a little bit better in terms of size. We're going to look at quality in a second. And then for the sunrise, that started off at 254 kilobytes. Kraken took it down to 88, and Imagify took it down to 108. So in this case, Kraken did a little bit better in terms of size. It's worth noting that both of these did a good job. Obviously, even Imagify in this case cut the file size more than half. And then with the Mona Lisa, they didn't do quite as well, but you're still shaving off a couple hundred kilobytes from the top, which, if you're posting and you can do this automatically, then hey, why not? But that's just file size, which is obviously only part of the picture. Let's go ahead, and I'm hoping that YouTube doesn't kill the quality of this video so much that this isn't going to be useful, but I'm going to open up Kaleidoscope here to look at a diff of the images. So right now I have the original, the Imagify version, and Kraken version, and I'm actually going to, let's zoom in on a portion of the pixels. Yeah, portion of the pixels. That's proper term. Here we go. All right. So right now we're looking at the original. This is like an eye test here. The original and then the Imagify version. original, Imagify. And you really can't see a whole lot of difference here. I'm having a really hard time seeing any difference between the two of these, which makes sense. Again, the file size didn't differ very much. You will see a little bit of added pixelation if you look sort of where the paint is cracking and stuff around these tiny little lines. You can notice a slight change. I doubt this is going to show up in the video. But yeah, so the Imagify version is great. Now let's look at the Kraken version versus the original. So here's the original. Here's Kraken. Original and Kraken. Now one thing I'm noticing, again, this is very slight. Along the lines of her hair and silk, those get a little bolder and sharper, slightly more pixelated, I think, as a result coming from that. But it's barely noticeable. And I'm going to go on the assumption here that if I actually compare the Imagify version and the Kraken version, the difference between those two is pretty much negligible. You really don't see much of a difference at all. Again, around some of the paint chips, you can kind of see, obviously they're using different algorithms. Kraken seems to define the lines a little bit more, which I think results in a slightly more pixelated look, at least up close, where Imagify seems to favor the sort of gradients and stuff. So it's much softer lines. All right, so that is the Mona Lisa. Now, the thing to remember here is, in this case, Imagify actually produced the smaller file. I'm going to say that this is a draw. Like I said, they seem to be applying things a little bit differently. Kraken favoring sharper edges, Imagify favoring sort of the gradients. At the end of the day, the quality is so close that it's pointless. Imagify did win in the size contest by a couple hundred kilobytes, but that's about it. So let's go ahead and look at the our other example here, the sunrise. Now, if you remember, this is the one where both services cut the image size in about half. And Kraken actually won the size contest here by a decent margin. So let's go ahead, and I'm actually going to take my magnifier here, and I'm going to zoom in on this hut in the background because we have some nice lines that we can look at here. And let me actually. All right, so right now we have our original, and here is the Imagify. Now you'll notice in this image, and hopefully this appears in the video much better, you definitely have added pixelation here for these background details when switching between the two, especially if you look right here around the post for the fishing shack or around the edges of these clouds. You'll notice here's the original and here's Imagify. Original, Imagify. So you have again, Imagify is really softening the edges around these clouds, and you do introduce some pixelation here around the post for the fishing hut. Now, let's go ahead and compare the original to the Kraken version. Here is the original. Here is Kraken. Now, Kraken, I'm noticing, is introducing way more pixelation. And again, I think that has a lot to do with the fact that Kraken really likes to accentuate the stronger lines in photos. So when there are so many lines here between the ropes and the rails and then all of these edges, you know, so when I switch to the Kraken version, you get a lot of pixelation around all of these lines. The clouds aren't really, the edges of the clouds aren't softened, they're pixelated. So you have a sharper edge there. The problem, of course, being that it's sort of that stair-stepped pixelated look, which isn't greatest. Now, that's versus the original. Let's go ahead and compare the two to each other. So here we have Imagify, here we have Kraken. Imagify, Kraken. Now, comparing the two of them, it's not as stark a comparison between the original and Kraken, but again here, looking at the photo, you're getting way more pixelation in the Kraken version. Now, it should be noted that in this case, like I said, the Kraken version was the smaller file. So in this case, it actually kind of makes sense that Kraken version is a little more pixelated, not as high quality because they did compress it more, which, depending on what you're going for, is good. The thing I do have to know, of course, though, is that once we zoom out here to, I'm on a 2560, 27-inch Apple monitor. So like, even if we made this like a background image, right? Like this huge image, comparing the two, you really can't see a difference. And even pulling this up on a Retina display, the image quality is so good. And even compared to, let's take a worst case scenario here, and we'll take the original versus the Kraken version. You can't see a difference. And Kraken has a slider on their site, actually, that you can play with. Let me actually minimize this and head over to the Kraken site. If you go to their homepage, they actually have a slider where you can play back and forth, and see that there's really not any noticeable difference in image quality. Obviously, if these images are blown up, then so be it. So all else being equal, let's go ahead and look at pricing. I'm going to mention this in the review as well. Pricing is really the differentiating factor for me in this case. Both of them have great APIs. Both of them have the web uploaders, which work great. I will note that from a personal style standpoint, I like Imagify style a little more, and it does have some like nice little things. I'm actually going to drag this window to the side here. It seems stupid, but let's drag the Mona Lisa into here, and I'm also going to drag the Mona Lisa over here. Both of them have your basic settings. You can resize it if you want. You can go aggressive or normal, which essentially equates to lossy or lossless. You drag and drop the file into here. You'll notice that Imagify does same sort of output that Kraken does in terms of here's what the original size was, here's what the final size is, and then offers you a download link. Now, this is stupid, I know, but when I click the download link in Imagify, downloads, which is great. When I click the download link in Kraken, it opens in a new tab. If anybody from Kraken's watching this, please just fix that. It's like one line of code to get that to change. It would just be nice rather than having to go and then click, save as. And obviously, knowing that it does that, you can obviously right-click here and say save link as. Okay, not a huge deal, but Imagify is a little nicer. I'll actually provide screenshots in the review of what the plugin panel looks like. Imagify wins some style points there as well. But let's go ahead and head over to pricing. So I'm going to open up the subscription page here. And actually, I need to get the full Kraken page. We actually need to Kraken pricing. They don't give you all the details in your account page, which is kind of a bummer. But I'm going to just go down to the monthly plans first here. And I'm going to skip right to their micro here. I'll talk about the free in a second. The micro plan for both of these, and Kraken makes their micro plan really tiny. The micro plan for both of these is 500 megabytes per month, and Imagify wins with $3.50 per month. Kraken is at $5 per month, so an extra $1.50 a month for the same thing. So be it. Oh well. So not a huge price discrepancy. You'll notice that as soon as we start getting up into the regular size plans, like the standard here, which is 5 gig, and the advanced, which is 5 gig, both of those are $19. Imagify is actually $19.99, so it's $1 more, whatever. And the same with the 15. Kraken's $39. Imagify is $39.99, so an extra $1 when you start getting up into the larger plans. What I want to note here, though, is that the micro plan is going to work for a lot of people. At least a lot of people who are going to be using a service like this. Enterprise is fine and dandy, although I don't know who's using the enterprise one. Maybe if you're like a photographer and doing that, you're not really an enterprise client if you're a photographer. But my point is that if you're doing high quality photography, you're probably only going to be using lossless, and you're definitely going to want a CDN. Some of the CDN services out there actually have stuff like this built in. Cloudflare already does some image optimization for you, which is cool. Not anywhere near what these services provide, but higher level CDNs will actually do crazy stuff for you. For uh, not if you're already going to be paying for that service, why would you also pay for these services? I don't know. But so their micro plan, going just on the micro plan, obviously go with Imagify, you can save $1.50 a month. Or better yet, Imagify actually offers a free plan, which is 25 megs per month, which is not much. But if you consider, your average photo size, I think the largest one, the sunrise photo that we downloaded, was about two megs. And even if you're pulling larger photos off a DSLR, that's maybe less than 5 megabytes. So if you're only posting a couple times a month in a blog, and you want your images optimized, then this is definitely the way to go. Kraken doesn't offer any sort of free plan. You do get for testing 50 megabytes, but that's one-time use. Once that's gone, you're done. Which, speaking of, the other cool thing with Imagify is that they have these booster packs that you can get. I'm thinking like Pokemon cards right now. Where you can sort of just one time buy some data for your plan. So I actually already used quite a bit of mine. They gave me some free stuff for signing up for an early invite, which is great because I was able to sort of jump in and optimize all of the old photos in my blog, which I should note, and I don't want to pull it up because it'll show my API key. And I don't want to have to blur it out. I'll post the results in the article. Even though I am usually good about optimizing all my photos in Pixelmator and using the EU plugin, after running Imagify on all of my old images, I still save like 30% space, which is really, really cool. But you can buy these. Once you use them, you can sort of use them as you like and then be done. Now, if you're looking specifically like a size to size, gigabyte per gigabyte comparison, Kraken, you'll notice that on their monthly plans, you can get additional gigabytes, right? And it changes depending on your plan. For the micro, it's an extra $5 per gig. And then when you get up to enterprise, it's only an extra $1 per gig. Cool. Obviously, that's much cheaper than the $10 per gig. $10 per gig is probably a little much. But the difference here is that this is in addition to your monthly cost, whereas Imagify lets you just buy that if you want. So if you don't want to be locked into a subscription, you can sort of just buy one of these, do what you need to do, use it a la carte, and then be done. I'm sure that there's people out there that the 1 gig would probably last you like all year, which is pretty cool. So I should note too, by the way, both of these have annual pricing too. I never like yearly pricing. I don't like being locked into something for a whole year, but Kraken, if you do a whole year, you end up saving about 2 months worth of stuff. And then if you do the yearly plan on Imagify, I think you actually end up saving a little more than 2 months if I did the math correctly. About $5 per year. So so you're saving about 2 months worth of data. If I'm doing math here. Math. It's too early. I haven't had another cup of coffee yet. So at least for me, in summary, both these images services do a great job. Imagify, at least for my taste, does provide slightly better results in what I've done. Now, again, Imagify seems to favor gradients over sharp edges. So I suppose if maybe you were compressing a lot of like illustrations or stick figure drawings, like if you're XKCD or something, and you have your little stick figure comics or something, maybe Kraken would be better for you because it is going to give you a slightly more defined line, whereas Imagify is going to give you more of a gradient. Most of my stuff is going to be photos with a few illustrations tossed in, so definitely Imagify is going to perform better in that scenario. But really, I think the differentiating factor here is going to be price flexibility. If you know for a fact that you're going to be using a certain amount every single month, then Kraken, you are going to maybe save $1 a month, which is cool. But Imagify definitely has more flexibility in terms of either going a la carte or monthly, and even has that free tier in there so that you don't need to be paying a huge amount every single month for service. The last thing that I want to touch on for anybody else, and I'm going to include files in my review. Let's come here to the web uploader. With the web uploader, I don't know if anybody caught when I uploaded the Mona Lisa again. Uploading the same image multiple times to both web uploaders gives you different results. Now they're not huge discrepancies, right? If I upload like, the Mona Lisa didn't get compressed a ton, right? But sometimes Kraken would spit something out that was like 883 kilobytes. Sometimes it would be 920. Sometimes it would be 900. And Imagify did the same thing. Sometimes it was 1.1 meg. Sometimes it was like 1,000, like whatever. So when I took my examples, I kind of took like the average result that I was getting. But I don't know what's going on there. Obviously, scientific methods like thrown out the window. You would think that both services would give you the exact same thing, given that it's an algorithm that would give you the same result each time, but it doesn't. And I don't know why. If anybody can answer why, that would be awesome. But at the end of the day, both, like I said, I took the average of what was coming out, at least for me. And really, at the end of the day, if you're using a service like this, then you're probably not going to rip your hair out over 100 kilobytes here or there in terms of what the end result is. So, well, that's it. If you have any questions, post them below or on the blog article on the site, nicholasgarofalo.com. Thanks.